Sometimes the best way to explain retail media or marketplaces is to use a great analogy, like retail media is like assembling IKEA furniture. You know the end result will look great, but leadership is frustrated because the instructions aren't in plain English and they don't understand why you need an Allen wrench and 47 screws to make it happen. Obviously, that analogy falls down pretty quickly, which is why I asked for some help. This episode is a call-in episode where I ask a few of my brand side retail media friends to share effective analogies that they have used to get their executive teams on board. They share why aging your Amazon ASINs is like aging a fine wine, and the two parallel roads of profitability versus growth. So if you've ever struggled to make retail media feel tangible for your leadership team, these analogies might just be the trick. Let's dive in. Good morning and welcome to the Retail Media Breakfast Club. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern, I bring you candid and real discussions in the world of retail media and marketplaces in just 10 minutes. So bring your own cup of coffee and we'll get smarter about retail media together. Now let's hear from Scott Oshman, VP Digital Commerce at the agency Quickfire and host of the Always Off Brand podcast.
It's the two streets, okay? You go down, there's a fork in the road, you have a decision to make, and this is what we have to get every decision maker, every budget owner has to make this decision. Which street am I going on to? Because there's only two streets. You cannot go down both streets at the same time. So you pick one. One street is profit. The most important thing for me to do is to be profitable. That's one street. You direct your teams, you direct all of everybody who's involved. My goal, my street I'm going down is profit. Okay? The second street, the other street is sales. I want to get as many sales as I possibly can get, and I don't care what the profit is. I just want to go get sales. Once you understand which street you're going down, you can go down one street, and the good news is the other street will come back. It'll actually become a circle because if you do profit at certain points, it will actually become you'll get the sales. Same thing if you go down the sales street, down the road, you do it, the profit will come back. That is the laws of digital advertising and retail media. The biggest thing that people do not get on all levels of organizations, I don't care what size, they all want both at the same time. They want to drive down both streets at the same time. And it's physically, scientifically, mathematically impossible.
Now let's hear from Ben Galvin, Senior Director of Omnichannel, Retail Sales, and E-commerce at Monster Energy.
Yeah, so I actually used this a few weeks ago. I liken the retail media as like a farmer's market. So each brand has a booth. It's a very democratic society. It doesn't matter how big a brand you are, you only get one booth. And advertising determines your booth's location, visibility, foot traffic. The better spot and messaging that you have, the more likely the shoppers are going to come visit your stand and purchase. It's a big opportunity for brands to make sure that whether they're using quantitative analytics or qualitative consumer insights, that they're ultimately, again, doesn't matter how big you are as a brand, everyone's got the same amount of space. And it's important to make sure that you're maximizing the visibility and foot traffic through your brand's location in this case, by ultimately using the quantitative analytics that you have to get your messaging out there, hit the right consumer, and ultimately drive your purchases from there.
Now let's hear from Paolo Baccarin Fillo, Commercial Director at Tom's of Maine.
My favorite one is aging your ASINs. It's not fancy or groundbreaking, but I'm pragmatic. So this is, to me, an essential part of being successful in an e-commerce platform, especially Amazon. Traditional retailers, usually innovation plays a greater role to drive short-term sales impact, but Amazon, the longevity of the ASINs usually pays even greater dividends. So in this sense, aging ASINs requires building ratings and reviews, the subscribe and save base, traffic volume, conversion, and the list goes on. So all of this take time but it unlocks a virtual cycle. So building the organic relevance, you get better share of voice, that will then lead to more traffic. And if you have a good PDP that you're optimizing, even better conversion. So eventually feeds an even greater relevance. So all of that can be done with lower and more efficient spend, right? So that's my whole point on aging the ASINs. On the flip side, new ASINs will require a lot of investment in promotion, advertising to unlock the same levels of share of voice and clicks. So I think just comparing to a good wine or good whiskey, like maintaining well and let your ASINs age will work well.
Now let's hear from Darren Silverman, SVP of Digital Commerce and Media at Petmate.
So I kind of, again, working with a more traditional experienced leadership team, they understand category management. They understand walking down an aisle in a grocery store, a retailer. And when it came to retail media, one of the analogies I've used, or the, descriptive, is if you could pay a few cents that every time someone walked down that aisle, knowing they were in the purchase for the category you were in, to have your product basically jump off the shelf in front of their face, you would be willing to do that in a Walmart store, right? So why wouldn't we do that in the digital equivalent of that space, which is the digital aisle, the digital shelf? And that seemed to click. It's really about the visibility and that applying back to sort of a traditional category management mindset and getting your product visible was a critical call out there.
Now let's hear from Ash McMullen, Head of E-commerce at Advantis Health.
I like analogies that relate really closely to like anything that has to do with the physical shelf and brick and mortar, because mostly everyone in an organization understands physical retail, and digital retail is the newish thing that everyone's kind of still learning the nuance of. So to emphasize the importance of like an always on approach or just remaining in budget when it comes to Amazon sponsored ads, I related it back to the physical shelf and made the analogy that every Amazon product search is a digital shelf reset, and it's the equivalent of that physical shelf reset, which happens in brick and mortar once a year. So it's giving like the customer, like when they go to the physical aisle and they're looking, it's every time that they hit enter. It's a new reset.
Well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Retail Media Breakfast Club. We meet here every day at 6 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to subscribe and get your daily dose of insights, trends, and hot takes in the world of retail media and marketplaces.